Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another live session here on the Andrew Tucker Report. And we are going to be looking at Hurricane Mellissa today and the fact that, this catastrophic hurricane, Category 5, some say Category 4, that passed through Jamaica last week has created a lot of devastation. And I am sure that people are hurting and they are sort of in a state of confusion as most of what they expect to be our leaders who should be supporting them, in some cases, they seem to be managing the disaster rather than proactively doing something to help the people. Now, we can see also lots of what you call it now, international, reporters going to Jamaica from Fox and from CNN and, from the traditional BBC news. And they're there and they're reporting. And sometimes they're reporting gleefully what is happening there. And you're really wondering if they are generally there, they're genuinely there to help the people, or they're just there to worship climate change, as they're suggesting that this is about climate change and climate change has caused this natural disaster. Now, today we'll be joined by Mr. Fred Corbin of Barbados, and I'm going to allow him to speak and about his impressions, his understanding of what is happening in Jamaica with this hurricane Mellissa. So I'm going to now invite Mr. Corbin into the platform. I'm always having problems, Mr. Corbin, putting you on stage. You're here. Good afternoon, Mr. Corbin.
Good afternoon, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much. And we're just talking about this devastating hurricane. And the Jamaica leader this morning is reporting, Mr. Corbin, that Hurricane Mellissa death toll in Jamaica climbs to 28. 28 now. Some people are reporting, Fred, that there are more deaths. So I'm just going to give you the chance now to talk, I'm not going to interrupt you. Just talk. And then hopefully after Mr. Corbin finishes his lecture, we will have a discussion and we can ask our questions. So go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew, and good afternoon to all of your audience who is joining us on this particular occasion. We'd like to thank them for joining us and welcoming all of our listeners across the Eastern Caribbean, as well as internationally, who will be viewing this broadcast. And what we're faced with right now is the weaponization of foreign policy.
Can you hear me?
I just got a very loud noise in the background there. Not sure
From my maybe I'm the one who turned up. Yeah, let me turn it back down. So maybe it's mine. I was the one who was turning up the volume, but maybe I need to turn it back down. All right, is it better now?
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic.
Yeah, I was the one who, sorry about that.
Sorry, as I was saying, what we're witnessing is the implementation of weaponized foreign policy. And Hurricane Mellissa was a geoengineered event put in place by those persons who know that they control foreign policy via weaponized weather manipulation. And the reason that we know this is that, as I mentioned in my radio broadcast yesterday on 246BajanVibesRadio.com, is the fact that all of the data surrounding the formation and the precursor to the run-up of this Category 5 storm was identical to Hurricane Ivan in 2004, which means that not only is the data able to be uploaded and reused with regard to manipulation and the formation of weather, but the only difference that we had between the formation of Hurricane Ivan and Mellissa was atmospheric aerosol injection, which was a large part of the formation of Hurricane Mellissa. Atmospheric aerosol injection is the use of an aircraft to disperse either silver iodide crystals or barium salts into the atmosphere, creating, along with electromagnetic frequency, the ability for sound and electromagnetic frequencies to create water-bearing clouds. And the minute that you start doing that and you preheat the upper atmosphere using laser ionization, you create the cauldron for the formation of a rapidly developing convection. Developing convection. You can then preheat the ocean ahead of the storm, which maintains the fuel that convection requires in order to initiate what is known as baroclinic initiation, which is the upflow up through the center of the eye wall and out across the top. And we saw this in every single category. It was identical to Hurricane Ivan in 2004. The electromagnetic frequencies were the same, and even more obvious was 6 hours before the hurricane made landfall and the parish of St. Elizabeth, we saw the 90-degree turn and head straight inland. And this was carried out by NEXRAD radar, as well as the induced ocean heating close to shore. And this caused that steerage at 90-degree turn into land. Not only that, but the action of doing that close to shore in shallow, warm waters created this super acceleration, which saw the storm go from a category 4 to a category 5 in less than 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, it went from category 4 to category 5 and came ashore with wind speeds of 185 miles an hour gusting to 230, which is identical to Hurricane Ivan when it struck Grenada.
Mm-hmm.
This was a detonation of a weapon that was taken from the archives, uploaded, the systems were calibrated, and that weapon was put in motion against the people of Jamaica. Mm-hmm. This is not only an international crime, but it's a crime against humanity, because you've resulted in the destruction of hundreds of thousands of people's property, as well as deaths occurring. And you have a situation that is now fully exposed, completely exposed for disease, famine, conflict, through frustration,
suicide,
all the rest of those things now come together in a confluence to create a set of circumstances which can be used by a nefarious government program to say, right, let's put the military in there and create a state of emergency and clear everybody out. It's a land grab by criminal means, bottom line. What we have just witnessed in the Caribbean region is not only the ability of the Zionist ideology that controls Jamaica, and we saw that happen when the Prime Minister of Jamaica found himself in Israel paying allegiance to the Zionist ideology, going to the Wailing Wall in Israel, and then reciting the Zionist ideology script in the presence of the Chabad Jewish cabal. I will say to Mr. Andrew Holness, you selling your people out by allowing the Zionist ideology to take control of Jamaica will be your last act as a prime minister of a Caribbean country, because the people of Jamaica now understand exactly what you have done. And one thing I can guarantee you, Mr. Holness, is that the people of Jamaica will not be put to the sword by you, by the Zionist ideology, or by any other hegemonic power, because the people of Jamaica stand on the spiritual ground upon the frequency upon which that country was established. The spiritual energy that exists in Jamaica will bring the Jamaican people through to victory. And you will find yourself behind bars, Mr. Holness, because the crime which you have allowed to happen to your people will not go unpunished. Yes. The lives of innocent men, women, and children were lost because you took a decision to sell your soul to a criminal Zionist ideology that has wrought death and destruction around the world for the last 6,000 years. Hasn't only just started. This is a 6,000-year-old death cult that you, Andrew Holness, have sold your soul to. And one thing is very clear to the people of Jamaica: when you mess with Jamaican picnic, that's when you have problems, big problems. Okay, and I can guarantee you, just because you think that you may have sold your soul to the devil of the Zionist ideology, and you think you can reclaim sections of St. Elizabeth or the entire parish of St. Elizabeth and the cross section going all the way to Montego Bay to put your ideology in place at the behest of a hegemonic criminal control, that is when you are going to run headlong into the people of Jamaica. And the people of the Caribbean will join forces with the people of Jamaica, and they will make you pay for what you have done. Okay? I want to make that very clear, Mr. Holness. And I have nothing against you as a person. But what I have absolute objection to and will clearly call out is the fact that you have allowed yourself to be involved in a criminal act against the sovereign nationals of your country, Jamaica. And you have infringed upon the sovereign right of the people of Jamaica to defend their spiritual homeland and the frequency and the energy that abides therein.
Let's look at the country, Fred, and the parish St. Elizabeth. And that is known to be the breadbasket of the country. That is where the food supplies come from. Why would they want to attack St. Elizabeth? Why not Kingston? Why not another part of Jamaica?
Well, if you understand the depopulation agenda and the role that famine plays in the Agenda 2030 UN resolutions, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN call for global famine, the destruction of the food supply.
Mm-hmm.
And if you understand that famine and the reclamation by nefarious powers of the food producing regions of every country, you induce famine and a dependency on the incumbent government who can control the population at will. Famine is the ideology, and we saw this being played out in stark relief with the same Zionist ideology against the people of Gaza, where there was more than enough food aid gathered at the borders of Gaza, and it was deliberately interdicted and in some cases totally destroyed by airstrikes, and the people of Gaza are starving to death. And now with the deliberate breach of the ceasefire by the Israeli military at the behest of Benjamin Netanyahu, we see the exact same thing happening again. The aid has been halted. The bombing continues. The deaths are escalating once again. And the whole thing is an absolute tragedy, simply because, unlike Gaza, here in Jamaica, you have the unbelievable difference that you have agricultural land that can produce. In Gaza, there is no agricultural land. It's just a sand strip. In Jamaica, it is far more valuable because not only is it agricultural, but it is extremely rich agricultural land.
Yes.
And now they're talking about wanting to cover it down with a smart city. That smart city is designed to house those persons that are left after the farming is over. In other words, what they're doing is dissecting the country from west to east by putting a smart city that will span right across the entire country, from Montego Bay to the coastline of St. Elizabeth on the Caribbean Sea. At the end of the day, this is a $37 billion development that will dissect Jamaica and put the rich on one side and the poor on the other. So that is exactly what it is.
They're doing. The plan is. Now, what is the smart city? For those who do not understand what a smart city is, could you explain to them what is a smart city and what is really the agenda for smart cities?
Well, it's ironic that you asked that question. I covered this question in my broadcast yesterday on 246 Major Voice Radio, where, ironically, CFW Engineering, my company, was the first company in the Caribbean region to design a smart city for Guyana. Because during the Free Winds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative research program, we recognized that Guyana, due to its oil fortunes, prospectus, and the future development of the country, a smart city to manage the financial sector of Guyana and the continued development of its population to sustain the future of the oil and gas development industry and everything else that would come with it would require an advanced development that was not possible in the urban areas surrounding Georgetown.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is that we designed a reclaimed area of land where we would build an offshore island that was 16, I think it was, it was 60 square miles, 60 square
Mm-hmm.
miles in area, almost like an extension of the land from East Coast Demerara out into the ocean. 60 square miles of reclaimed land, and as you know, the water off Guyana is very shallow because it's an estuary, and we designed it around, first of all, maximizing industrial training development for modern techniques, proper modern power generation, solar hydrogen desalination of freshwater resources, the development of high technology industry, connections to a regional internet service that would rival anything that can be provided by offshore entities at this moment. And that was an additional project from the Free Winds that would be installed in that city, a project known as Stereo, which was designed by my company and other industry leaders in the telecommunications, where the smart city could be connected via satellite and stratolite to the rest of the world without using hard cabling, and it's not able to be interdicted by electromagnetic pulse. So you can't knock it out.
You can't get out of a
Nope.
smart city.
Nope, you can't knock it out.
What do you mean by that? What do you
in
mean
other
I can't
words,
get out?
an electromagnetic pulse designed either by the explosion of a nuclear weapon in the lower Earth atmosphere, or like a weapon like what Russia has developed, which is housed in a cruise missile that can pass over an area and take out entire electronic grids. You can't do that with this smart city that we designed, because everything is EMF hardened, as well as it's not dependent on external sources with regard to power.
No,
we have our own power supply built in to everything, and it's quadruple redundant. So you may be able to shut down the system for a very short space of time, but then it switches to backups and takes back up.
Right. But in terms of mobility, in terms of people moving around, and if I
Yes.
want to move from St. Elizabeth to Kingston, from X area to Y area, how does it affect me? How does a smart city affect me in terms of my mobility?
It's a smart city. We have to remember that smart cities are designed also as 15-minute cities. So if you go outside, and this is the reason why the Prime Minister of Jamaica was pushing the digital identification and the national that NIDS program, National Identification System, as well as the CBDCs and so on, because within the smart city built there, you would be able to control the population within the bounds of the city.
Yes.
If you go outside of a certain area without permission, your bank account can be seized. You can't buy food. You can't put gas in your car. You can't pay insurance. You can't send your children to school.
So are you suggesting that if I'm going to Kingston, I will have to let them know that I'm going to Kingston and that they have to give me permission?
That's correct.
How does that work? How does that work?
Well, the way it works is that the national identification system, the digital ID, puts your entire biometrics as well as everything else that you're doing on a surveillance grid. And that surveillance grid is built in to every single component of your environment, which is CCTV cameras on every street corner. Your vehicle has a RFID chip that's placed on a little strip on the windshield, like what we have here in Barbados. The government here in Barbados has done that. And then the digital ID is actually talking to your telephone. The chip in the digital ID, the algorithm in the digital ID, and your cell phone are synced. So any communication that happens in your phone is automatically synced with the digital ID. And the minute that you go past what's known as geofencing, the RFID chip in the digital ID will say, I'm outside of my boundaries, and shut everything down, including if you're driving an electric vehicle, it will shut the vehicle off.
Wow. So And this, how are we not being told about this? Why people are thinking that these things are conspiracy theories? Why is it that citizens are not aware of the agenda of smart cities, Fred?
Simply because the governments that are actually putting them in place also have no idea what is entailed.
Very
They
good
are
point.
they are they are on a need to know basis, and they don't need to know until it's actually time to install everything. Remember, the entire digital ID CBDC infrastructure globally is already in place. All they need is the compliance of corrupt politicians in every single country in order to be able to put it in place. And that is precisely what you see happening in Jamaica. And Andrew Holness was given advanced notice that this hurricane would devastate a certain area of Jamaica and that he would be powerless to do anything about it. And right now, he is given a checklist of what he has to accomplish. Okay? This is a checklist of what you need to accomplish. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the third. At the end of the day, Mr. Holness is complicit in the destruction of a section of his own country because he had advanced a foreknowledge of what was going to happen.
What frightens me, Fred, is the fact also that they are taking their own little bit tiny time to get aid to the people, right? They prefer to have these international, journalists and news outlet go to these places and interviewing the people. I would not be interviewed by them. I would say, get the hell out of here. What I need now is water and basic things. I don't need to be talking to you, because they're just there to glorify what they're seeing and to paint the picture that the Caribbean and other poor, hapless people. But the fact is that Andrew Holness, I would imagine, it's a small country, right? It's not comparable to Palestine or any other bigger country than we are. An island, a small, tiny island. Why couldn't they get the help to people in a more timely, faster way? And do you think they want, in addition to famine, the outbreak of diseases, that they can vaccinate and they can, have their health agenda on board? What do you think?
No, the overarching requirement is to have migration. They want everyone to move out. Oh, the aid is not coming fast enough, so I'm going to move to my family in Clarendon, or I'm going to move to my family in St. David's, or I'm going to move to my family somewhere else. If you can force the population to peaceably and willingly evacuate the area, you have achieved precisely what needs to happen. But what needs to happen is that the people of Jamaica need to reverse that script. Everybody needs to move into St. Elizabeth.
But they can't, because it's confusion.
No,
And
no, no. Hang
until they
on.
clean the
No,
debris.
no. Hang on 1 second. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me very carefully.
Mhm.
If everybody moves into St. Elizabeth, bringing the resources and the construction skills, as well
Okay.
as food and aid and so on, you can double the population in St. Elizabeth in a matter of 2 weeks. And the country can rebuild that section based upon the free will of Jamaicans. Remember, this is a time for national unity in a disaster. And the way to
Yeah.
flip the script on the whole climate change crisis nonsense is for the population to stand up and walk forward and say, we're moving to St. Elizabeth to help our brothers and sisters.
Yes, but
That
let's be
way,
practical. Yeah.
yeah,
Let's be
that
practical.
way, yeah,
Yeah.
that way you completely disabled any kind of nonsense. And if the military is deployed to prevent that from happening, then it's proof positive of what I've just said. They're trying to force migrate everyone out of the area.
Well, already I think you have U.S. soldiers on the ground, if I'm correct.
Well,
So
there you
that
go.
is something that is already planned, that they're on the ground. I'm not sure why they're sent, because we have a military there too, and I'm sure that they could get supplies, or local military could get supplies to the people. I'm not sure why the U.S. soldiers are on the ground. As you're saying, there has to be some global agenda there. But on the point of the practicality of people moving into St. Elizabeth, and let us say I have a patty shop in wherever, in Kingston or wherever it is. I don't think I would want to move into a place that maybe is not up and running for people to buy patties and so forth. So I think that would take some time, and that is what is going to discourage people from moving into that state, that parish of confusion. What do you think?
You're not talking about the small businesses that will move in immediately. You're talking about construction companies that can move into the area and begin the reconstruction process.
Unfortunately,
Remember,
Jamaica
remember,
doesn't
hold
have a
on,
lot of construction companies,
hold on, hold
local
on,
construction companies.
hold on 1 second. Jamaica has more than enough local construction companies. All it needs is the free will of the people to bring it together. If the free will of the people is not able to come together, then it will not happen. You can't draw an example in a natural disaster with a patty shop in Kingston that only turns over less than a
I'm just
$1,500
giving
a week.
a small
But
example.
hold
I'm
on,
just saying that there are
hold
people
on.
who
No,
have
I
businesses.
understand. I understand completely where you're coming from. But you have to understand this: is that there are more than enough construction companies in Jamaica that have the ability, have the manpower, and have the ability to bring help to the area. If the government decides to utilize the military as well as resident U.S. forces who were there before the event happened, okay, against this action, then the people of Jamaica need to riot and demonstrate and put their voices before the government, because then
Yes.
Andrew Holness would have revealed precisely what I've just said: the deliberate destruction of the breadbasket of his country at the expense of his people. And if you are going to deploy a military force to prevent the reconstruction and the delivery of aid because you have a larger agenda at the behest of criminal hegemonic control, then you need to be removed from office by whatever means necessary.
Yes. Something that is very important now, and because we have to be practical while we are saying these things, because it's good to say when we are not in the confusion right now. The people who have, as you're saying, the wet clothes on their backs are not thinking like us in terms of they just want some water to drink and they want to take a shower. How could we get supplies to them much faster, or how could we have gotten supplies to them much faster than we're getting those supplies, so that we can spare lives and we can prevent that the outbreak of what do you call it now, diseases?
The Jamaica Defense Force owns and operates at least 12 helicopters. That is the first instrument and tool to be used in any humanitarian disaster. The reason I know this, I was in Jamaica. I was in Grenada when Hurricane Ivan went through there in 2004.
Yes.
I was in St. Lucia when Tomas went through St. Lucia. And the first hurricane I ever experienced was, ironically, the one that struck Montego Bay in 1988.
Wow.
Okay?
Yeah, Gilbert,
Hurricane Gilbert. Okay, so yes, I've lived through three. It's every man for himself when something like that happens. The most important thing is this: at the end of the day, the Jamaica Defense Force operates no less than 12 helicopters. They operate a large number of trucks and other vehicles. In addition to that, the private sector needs to be mobilized.
Correct.
With regard to food and supplies. All the guys that drive big rigs that are hauling from west to east on a daily basis need to be commandeered and say, we need food, we need water, we need shelters, we need whatever we can get our hands on. And the very fact that the U.S. military is on the ground, we need to have C-17 transports landing in Kingston as well as Montego Bay every 20 minutes, bringing in as many supplies as possible. We need to erect tent cities within St. Elizabeth with immediate effect. Tent cities. The United States military has a program that they can erect 500 tents in less than 24 hours, because we've used this in humanitarian disaster situations in the Philippines before. I was there. I know what I'm talking about. You can erect 500 tents and a medical unit in less than 24 hours. The United States military has containerized medical units that can be pushed into the back of a C-17 transport and dropped in any location. You put that on the back of a truck, you take it into the area, and in less than 24 hours, you've got a medical station set up. We have one here in Barbados. The Barbados Defense Force has one here in Barbados. We set it up as a demonstration here at the new National Stadium last year. Okay? In 24 hours, that can be up and running. You can erect 500 tents in separate locations. What you do a distributed community plan. For any large-scale disaster, you do what's known as distributed community plan setup. You put 500 tents here, you move 2 miles down the road, you put another 500 tents. You don't want everybody all intermingling together. Reason being, you want to control any disease that may outbreak, and you also want to be able to have accuracy of your deployment of food and aid. If you have separate communities of 500 each, it is easier and much more logical to be able to get that community set up, this community set up, this community set up, because you can roster the delivery of the aid. If everything is all in one situation, then one half
Yes.
of the people get and the other don't. Okay?
Correct.
Been
Correct.
there, done that, know the logistics, got the t-shirt. All right?
Yeah, in terms of the aid, the international aid, why do you think the international community, well, we have some good people out there, don't get me wrong. You have some good organizations, but why do you think they're so much eager to send aid to Jamaica, for example, than our own people? Well, don't get me wrong, our diaspora, they're helping as much as they can, but the people, as you're saying, the private sector of Jamaica and the government itself, not sending the aid as quickly as these international people. Is it a business, or is this just a part of what we call disaster capitalism?
Yeah, of course it's a business, Andrew. It has always been a business. The aid, look, 90% of the aid sent into Haiti never reached the people of Haiti in 2010.
Absolutely.
Okay, the Clinton Foundation stole all of that money. All right, the Clinton Foundation, the criminal organization that it is, stole all of that money for the people of Haiti. Okay, the Israeli military set up a similar aid program called Relief Aid for Gaza. Okay, and it was run by the Mossad, and all of the money that people were sending from overseas went to the Mossad, and the aid never got to the people. Okay, and that's documented fact. You can go on Google and look it up. Okay.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it is all about the money. The same thing happened with this flotilla going to Gaza. Oh, we're bringing aid to Gaza, and we get Greta Thunberg and everybody all together, and we sail across the Mediterranean in this big convoy and so on. When the Israeli military boarded the vessels, there was not a single package of rice on board the vessel.
Wow.
It was all a hoax. It was all a hoax.
So all of what we're seeing on television, Fred, with all the rice and what we're seeing on these,
That's nonsense, utter nonsense.
Posturing is just for the public to see,
but
and it's not real.
But you know what? The Gaza flotilla raked in almost $16 million in support.
Yes.
What did the people of Gaza get? Nothing.
And why is it that Caribbean people are not learning their lessons? Why do we think we're some special people, more special than the people living in Gaza and Iraq and Haiti, particularly during the earthquake? We know that they got, as you said, the Clinton Foundation stole everything that was ever donated to them. And we know they got, billions of dollars, supposedly, right? And people are questioning, why isn't Haiti rebuilt? Because it was not sent to rebuild Haiti.
Of course not. If it had been possible to employ the 4.6 billion US dollars that was donated to Haiti from international organizations and private donors from around the world in 2010 to the people of Haiti, Port-au-Prince would not be in the situation it's in today.
Yes. So, Mr. Corbett, I think I have to make this very important point. Jamaicans, you have to understand that all of this international aid, if the diaspora, folks like me and you, don't mobilize to send the food and the supplies right now, our people are going to die. Okay?
That's correct.
We cannot leave it on the international community to aid our people. We cannot leave it on the international people who are saying they're so nice and they love Jamaica and all of that stuff. All of those are nice sounding words. We, the man on the street, the one who are the nurses and the doctors and the lawyers in Jamaica, and the Barbadians who live there and are concerned about what is happening because we're all Caribbean brothers, they are the ones who we have to depend on. And those of you who are in the States and you're in Canada or you're in the UK, you're sending money, do not send it through the Red Cross and all of these organizations. They are going to steal the money. It's better to send it with nurses and doctors whom you know, who are going down there, and you can say, okay, give them something to carry so that they can work directly with the people. Another thing I would like to ask you, Mr. Corbett, the status of forces agreement, that is something that is also worrisome for me, because in that disaster situation, there is I don't want to use the word the privilege, but they have the opportunities there to exploit the people. Could you explain to us what we mean by the status of forces agreement that the United States has with many of our countries?
Well, remember that the status of forces agreement with the Caribbean region goes all the way back to what I've previously said to our audience on more than one occasion. and I mentioned it again yesterday in my broadcast on 246BajunVibesRadio.com, which has its origins in the 1941 agreement called Destroyers for Bases with President Theodore Roosevelt and Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Britain, that was signed on the 6th of September 1941. That agreement was for 99 years, where America would have access to Caribbean territories for the building, establishment, maintaining, and the organizational running of military bases in designated Caribbean territories. In 1961, during the second year of the Federation, that treaty was actually amended to allow the United States military to economically develop each Caribbean territory in support of future operations such as humanitarian relief, as well as disaster management, and so on and so forth. And that remains in place today. And Southcom carries out regular exercises annually, in the Caribbean region with regard to reinforcing regional cooperation in training and various other things like that for just such this purpose. Now, if the United States of America is living up to standards or living up to what it claims to be in support of Caribbean regions and territories, why isn't the Southcom flotilla that is currently confronting Venezuela anchored off Jamaica with helicopters bringing aid to and from? You have two massive aircraft carriers. You have 4,200 Marines who are skilled in humanitarian relief. You have a helicopter landing dock ship that has 26 helicopters on it. You've got 70,000 tons of supplies and food on board that vessel, and you have 15 missile cruiser destroyers that also have their own helicopters, as well as food and water on board. You could have a massive humanitarian deployment in Jamaica within 24 hours. And the whole situation would change positively. Why isn't it being done? So if you're supporting Southcom, if you're a member of Southcom training forces, why isn't Andrew Holness on the phone to Donald Trump and say, I need that flotilla that you have down Venezuela in Jamaican waters tomorrow, because I need to make sure that you guys are living up to what you've already signed. But no, everybody's sitting down there trying to wash their hands of the situation and say, oh, the international aid agencies are going to take care of it. Bullshit.
Yes.
Get it done.
And not only Andrew Holness, Mr. Corbyn, but also Mrs. Kamala Harris-Bicester.
Yes.
She's the one who's saying she's sending aid to Jamaica. And she's saying that those military who are there are just there because they are partnering with Trinidad to ensure peace in the Caribbean, because they have this status of forces agreement. I'm saying, well, if you are sending aid to Jamaica, tell them to go to Jamaica and to do what you just said. But before you go on, Mr. Corbyn, Don Dada, welcome to the program. She's asking, why did Holness go to Israel? The same was done for COVID-19. So she's asking, why did Holness go to Israel? Why did he go to Israel?
He went to Israel because he was told to go to Israel by the United States of America. Marco Rubio instructed Andrew Holness that the United States of America would be taking control of Jamaica, and that his loyalties would be best served if he went to Israel and aligned himself with the Zionist ideology of the Chabad Jewish cabal. Bottom line. At the end of the day, and we clearly see this. The document, did I send you the document of Israel Aid? Israel Aid is now coordinating all the aid into Jamaica. Well, you remember the organization called USAID? USAID was run as a CIA front company funded by Israel's Mossad, and now they've changed the name from USAID to ISA Aid, Israel Aid. It's nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. Only the actors are being replaced. The organization remains in a different form.
I'm happy you said that, because a lot of people tell me that Trump is not a part of the climate change agenda. But they don't understand that Trump only changes names, but the agenda is the same. As you're saying, there's a name change, but the actors remain the same.
Well, let's ask a logical question. If Mr. Trump has said that climate change is a hoax, and he believes that it's all nothing more than a hoax, and so on and so forth, let us ask a logical question. Is weather modification and manipulation, which has patents going back to 1891, which was approved by Congress, by the President of the United States of America, Richard Nixon, as
Yes.
well as several other presidents down the line, and which more recently in 2025, January of 2025, new patents with regard to directional ability for the generation of tornadoes as well as typhoons in the Pacific region has been patented. Okay, so I'd like to ask Mr. Trump this question. Mr. Trump, with all due respect to you and your presidency, your statements with regard to climate change being a hoax is absolutely true. My question to you, sir, is this. If you know that climate change is a hoax, and you also have the presidential record and the congressional record that climate manipulation and weather manipulation is a fact, why are you allowing it?
Yeah. I want to go back to the status of forces agreement, because when I read what happens in Okinawa by this U.S. scholar Chalmers Johnson under the status of forces agreement, it is not pretty. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we have disasters of this nature, or women can be raped, the international soldiers can do anything they want to do, and they will get away because the laws permit them to be exempt from local laws, and they can always leave and go back to the States or wherever they're from. So I hope our men in Jamaica are watching our children and our women, and you understand that these international forces are not just there to aid you and to provide aid, but they can also rape your women and your children, possibly, we hope not. And whatever they do there, they will be exempt from local laws. Very important that we understand that. And if it can be done in Japan, in that area, they call it, what they call that area again, Mr. Corbin, can you remind me? I think Okinawa. Yeah, Okinawa. All right. If they can do it there, they can also do it and get away with it in the Caribbean region. So would you agree with me, Mr. Corbin?
Well, one of the things that we saw in every single theater of conflict that the United States has been involved in is exactly that. Not only that, but whenever the United States or Israel is embarked upon a conflict in a foreign country, there's one organization that always turns up right off the bat the very next day. You know what that organization is?
Mm-mm.
UNHCR.
Yeah, I think I've heard about it.
Right. UNHCR turns up the very next day, and that's when children start to go missing. In Gaza, irrespective of the 80,000 children under the age of 12 years old that have been killed, we have 16,000 children that are missing,
yes,
with documented proof that they were alive but are no longer there. That has nothing to do with the missing that are buried under the rubble. Okay, so 80,000 dead, but 16,000 who were recorded to be alive, last seen in refugee camps, and no longer there. Where are they?
And I'm not sure if you're following our news in Jamaica. Our local news is that children are being missing daily in Jamaica, even before the storm devastated that area.
Yeah.
All right, so we've been having like a disaster of children just gone missing or being killed.
That's correct.
You know,
why is that?
And seem like sacrifice.
Yeah, why is that? And the reason for that being is that during the Biden administration, all the countries that came under the Biden administration and signed the Samoa Agreement basically said to the world, we are offering our children as sacrifice to anyone who is willing. Here in Barbados, we had all of the homosexual and buggery laws quashed, disbanded, and removed from the National Register, and now young children are missing in this country as well. It's happening across the region.
And I'm happy you're saying that the buggery laws, as they are suggesting to us, is not about just homosexuality.
No,
it has to do with much more than. Could you explain that, Mr. Corbin? Because people think it just has to do with homosexuality, but it's a grander agenda.
Yeah, the buggery laws have only one component has to do with homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
The buggery laws are actually the exploitation and the sexual trafficking of children. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That is what this is. This is sex trafficking of children. And
Mm-hmm.
there's none more dangerous situation to find yourself in than being a refugee in a disaster with a family of young children whom you are now dependent upon a foreign entity for your survival.
Correct.
If you don't be careful, your children will go missing.
They are, and that's the whole point. And women also have to be careful because we also have a pandemic in Jamaica of women being killed,
Yes.
and
Same thing here.
rapes. Yeah. So the fact of the matter, this is a natural disaster out of proportion. Yes, the physical disaster is still there, but there are other disasters which are going to be disease, a disaster of diseases, a disaster of rape, disaster of just total exploitation of that country. And look at the number of people who have joined the live, or people are just not interested. I think what they're interested more in is to hear, I don't know, what do you think? What's happening to our people, Mr. Corbin?
Well, you have to understand that with of the deployment of biological weapons against a population, you have the ability for nanoscale technology that has been injected into people to be controlled by frequency.
Yes.
And our populations across the Caribbean region are frequency controlled
Mm-hmm.
using 5G and 6G that create a mind control that places them in almost a conscious sense of stupor,
Yeah.
which they cannot reason, they cannot think clearly, they cannot think critically with regard to situation, even although the evidence is clearly in front of their face.
Right.
This is mind control using nanoscale technology and 5 and 6G frequency. Because the frequency, as you all know, can be used to influence a person's behavior. And if for those of you who are watching this program and you wish to do a little bit of research, just go to your Google search engine and type in Dr. James Giordano, and you will see everything about the United States military, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency development on this particular subject. Mind control. Why do you think Donald Trump is so erratic? The same thing happened to President Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Mind control. Before President Trump became president, he was logical. He was elected based on very logical principles, and now all of a sudden he's like almost as if he's turned into a different person. Why? Because the same people that were controlling Biden are controlling him. Okay? Trump got mugged early by the same Zionist ideology and the criminal cabal, and he is being mind controlled.
But all presidents, I think from the beginning of times have, they have this illusion of grandeur until they get into the position and they realize that it's not what they think the
Yes, well,
presidency is. I think Obama did warn Trump and say, what you're seeing outside of the presidency is not necessarily what is going to be there. You're just going to have to deal with it. When the reality is when you get into that seat, because remember too that President Obama had all of these grand ideologies of what he was going to do or what not going to do, and then when he got into the seat, he started doing whatever Bush was doing. He continued in the on the same trajectory that President George W. Bush was continuing on.
well,
So
it brings us back to the conversation with President Vladimir Putin in 1998,
mhm.
where he was asked by a reporter, "What do you contribute to the fact that the U.S. presidents seem to be very ambitious before they become president, then after they acquiesce on every single thing?" And he
Correct.
said to the reporter, he said, "The United States of America is a special story because the presidents, once they're elected, are then visited by men in suits and black ties. And then the entire situation continues along the path for which it was set."
Mhm. Now,
President
Mr.
Putin said that clearly on record. He's on record as saying that,
saying
and
that,
this
I think
and this is this is exactly what is happening. Donald Trump came into power. His electorate voted him into power based upon the fact that he was going to bring jobs back to America. He was going to end all the wars America was going to be involved in, and he was going to set America on a path of peace and prosperity, and so on. And what is the result? He has not achieved a single promise of his entire pre-election campaign. Not one.
Hmm. And
Not a
did
single
he
promise.
really want to do that, or was he just, bamboozling his base? Did he really want to bring back the jobs?
Well, we have seen some job increases in the United States of America, but not anything near what he predicted.
And not only that, the jobs are not middle class jobs. They're mostly low paying jobs. A few are. But for the most part, if you don't bring back the manufacturing base, which he's not going to be able to do, you're not going to have that sort of America that they had in the 1960s and prior. And then that's what Americans want. And they don't understand that the globalization that they are so much a part of and they don't care about, and they're now realizing it's now affecting them, because when people were being paid $1 per hour or less, they didn't care until now it is there where their
Exactly.
dollar is being devalued, they're not being paid well, and now they're feeling the pinch. Go ahead, Mr.
Not,
Corbett.
not only that, but you have to remember that Donald Trump's fascination with tariffs destroyed his ability to bring jobs back to America,
Yes.
because you ended up hurting your electorate far more dangerously than ever before. Because
Hmm.
the average family that was looking to have a budget of 310 US dollars per week that would
Hmm.
cover food as well as the gas in the car and so on, and barely make any utility payments,
Right.
has now doubled. And it has resulted in one of the greatest housing crises in US history,
Hmm.
where you have hundreds of thousands of homes that are on the brink of foreclosure, and the large housing and insurance corporations are rubbing their hands with glee because they're getting ready to snap up entire communities for less than 20 cents on the dollar.
Hmm.
What does this mean? This means that people are moving out of their homes and living in the forest, in tents, camping out, moving into the rural areas of America and camping out in campers and in tents. Hundreds of thousands of Americans are living outside of their own homes. This is a fact.
Yeah.
This is not hyperbole. This is an
Yeah.
actual fact.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the United States president believes that by deploying the military into the cities to try and control what he calls rabid crime
Hmm.
is not going to work.
Well, that's not what
All
they're there for. As you
no,
know, they're there to control the people from protesting. As we're
yeah,
seeing now in Trinidad, and even with this impending war, the Trinidadians would like to protest, but they're saying that they can't do that because they're under a state of emergency. In fact, the other day, they have extended the state of emergency in Trinidad to 3 more months, for 3 more months. So the fact of the matter, they won't be able to protest. The same thing is happening in the States. People just cannot or will not be able to protest because of the militarization of the cities. Go ahead, Mr. Corbett.
well, it's a very sad situation, and what you're saying is absolutely accurate. I see absolutely no reason for a state of emergency in Trinidad and Tobago. All it is a control mechanism in order to be able to ensure that the UNC maintains control over the people. For what reason? Has Trinidad ever had a military revolution other than what took place in 1992
Hmm.
when
The
Mr.
Muslim, yeah.
Yeah, when Mr. when he took over Red House briefly,
Hmm.
and he did that for a reason.
Hmm.
And the reason is that Trinidad had become a cesspool of militarized corruption, and he took
Hmm.
issue with it, and he
Hmm.
stood and made a stand. Okay,
Hmm.
and Mr.
Hmm.
Barker will go down in history as being the only person that
Hmm.
has taken a stand against institutional corruption in Trinidad and Tobago.
Hmm. Now, let's look at the militarization of St. Elizabeth in Jamaica after the storm. Now, we were saying that, as you were saying, you suggested that, these business people could move in and other people who could develop business and to live there and, to combat the agenda that they have, the globalists have. But when they've sent their military there too from the States to protect the area, how much can we fight against them as the United States citizens can't fight against this militarized forces that are there?
Andrew, you are Jamaican.
Hmm.
I am Jamaican by spirit.
Yes,
Do not ever underestimate the power of the Jamaican
the
people
people.
to make
Yeah,
things happen. And I
yeah.
will tell you one thing for certain, okay? And I'm gonna lapse into a little bit of Jamaican patois here. If
Yeah,
me
no
and
problem.
if me I live in Jamaica, me nah let nobody come in my yard.
Them not left here, yeah? Them not left here. So they're gonna stand up to the military operations from the States. Now, I don't know though. I think that somehow we have lost that spirit. I don't know
I
how
don't
we
believe that
lost
at
it.
all. I don't believe that at all.
You don't
Absolutely
believe
not.
you
We
don't
have
believe
not
that whole
lost it. We have
yeah.
not lost it, and I'll tell you the reason why we have not lost it. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you walk the streets of Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
and recently in March of this year, I visited Jamaica to attend a book launch there,
Yes.
and I walked the streets of Hope Road,
Mm-hmm.
Bob Marley's
Museum.
area,
Yeah.
and so
Mm-hmm.
on, and speaking to the young people of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing more powerful than the enthusiasm of the young people on the street who
Mm-hmm.
are perfectly willing to take their country back by whatever means necessary. Every conversation that I had with young people, whether it was in the mall, on the street, in a
Mm-hmm.
taxi, in a side store, whatever, I always
Mm-hmm.
struck up the conversation. What do you think about what's happening in Jamaica right
Mm-hmm.
now? What
Mm-hmm.
what do you think we should do about it? And the answer was always the same. Tell me when
So,
you're ready, boss.
when are we not? Why are we not organizing against the IMF? Why did we allow the IMF to have gone to Jamaica? Even Mia Motley, when they said to her, "You're going to get this 6.5 what they call surplus for the IMF," she said, "No, no way. Barbados is not going to accept that. We can't live by that." Jamaicans accepted 7.5 surplus, a surplus of a primary surplus of 7.5 on their IMF loan, which was just something that tightened that economy and destroyed the country. Why didn't Jamaicans stand up and protest against that sort of injustice?
Well, you have to understand again, it comes back to optics. What do Jamaicans perceive to be done against them? But I'm
Yeah,
guaranteeing you one thing: a
yeah,
natural disaster and a piece of paper that nobody understands are two totally
I see
different
what you're
things.
saying. Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Jamaicans don't understand IMF policy. They
IMF
don't want to
policies.
understand it. Okay? But what they do understand is when you come in my yard and you mash up my house,
You're correct. You're
me,
correct.
me, me taking you out.
Yes, because
Right.
people said. In fact, no, you're right. Because the journalists who went to Jamaica the other day to report on Jamaica, and one of them said that Jamaicans should evacuate. In fact, you say that word, evacuate, and people got them. They took offense to that and said, "Where are we going to go? Where do you expect us to go?" And I think that Jamaicans were ready to defend their territory when they heard journalists, American journalists, saying that they have to evacuate. So you're
This
right. I
is
think
this
that
is
yeah, go ahead.
precisely the point I was making.
Yeah, you're right.
Jamaican spirit of unity and the spiritual power of staying put
Mm-hmm.
in their sovereign lands will never be interdicted. I don't care how much military power you bring. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
what kind of policy you bring. Jamaicans are staying put. And I say to the sovereign nationals of Jamaica today,
Mm-hmm.
remember the words of Marcus Josiah Garvey: release yourselves from mental slavery. None but
Yeah.
ourselves can free our minds.
Yeah.
This time is not about freeing your minds. This is
Mm-hmm.
about freeing your spiritual
Yes.
power to stand united today.
But what about Haiti? That we have seen their revolutionary spirit also, and we are seeing where it doesn't seem like they're winning this war against the U.S. and its military empire.
That's a very good question, but you also have to realize exactly what I've said on many occasions when we've been asked the same question. Haiti is administrated from outside of its territory. It is
Mm-hmm.
not administrated from anyone within.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, just look at this scenario. Take, for instance, look at an individual like Jimmy Cherizier.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Cherizier has been branded by the world as a terrorist, a scoundrel, and an absolute reprobate with regard to being a gang leader and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But what is Jimmy Cherizier fighting for?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Cherizier is fighting for the identity of the Haitian people. Okay?
Yes.
That's what Jimmy
Yes.
is fighting for. Jimmy Cherizier, if he were present on this live today, he would tell you, I'm fighting for the identity of the Haitian people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy's focus as a gang leader, as well as being a very well armed and experienced combat entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
okay, will tell you that if he had access to the people that were controlling Haiti and so on, they would not be alive much longer than the few minutes it took for him to load an AR-15 and empty it into them. Okay?
Yes.
Jimmy will kill and destroy anyone who is trying to manipulate Haiti, but he doesn't have access to them because they're outside of the country. Okay?
I see what you're saying.
Now,
Yes.
look at this scenario. You bring Jimmy Cherizier to the table, and you create a steady stream of funding to rebuild Haiti with the correct level of logistics and the implementation, and you put Jimmy Cherizier in charge of security. Haiti would be transformed in 24 hours. Why? Simply because Jimmy Cherizier has the ear of the people of Port-au-Prince on the ground, and the rival gangs will come together for the identity of the Haitian people. And following that, within 3 years, with the correct logistics, the funding, and the security provided by Jimmy Cherizier, as well as his loyal gangs, Port-au-Prince could be transformed into a metropolis that you'd never recognize.
Yeah, but a lot of Haitians, including Haitian scholars like Jemima Pear, among lots of others, even the ordinary Haitians on the streets, if you speak to them in Santo Domingo, they don't trust Jimmy Cherizier. They think that he's controlled. They think that he's controlled opposition,
Yeah.
And this is how the United States does too. It gives you this controlled opposition. You think that they're on your side. At the end of the day, when you look behind the scenes, they're not really on your side, and this is how we lose the war. The war now is very, very muddy, and you don't know who is sincere from who is not sincere. And this is a crisis that we're facing in today's age. But before we go to that, Mr. Corbin, is it Sealy 15 is saying, on a very important point, Trump criminalized homelessness earlier this year. So, you remember the slave laws? In the slave laws, after slavery ended and they didn't want us to be a part of their, the work environment, particularly in the United States, they would make these very, stupid laws, I would say, in which they're telling you that you can't be jobless or unproductive, but if you are seen on the streets walking, they're going to arrest you. So you're saying, so I have to walk to look for a job, because they say vagary, like the vagary laws in terms of you're walking on the street, so they think you're idling, but sometimes you're actually walking to find a job, and the people there in the United States said, okay, we can apprehend you because you're wasting time, when it was that I was looking for something productive, for a productive job. So the same thing here. If they criminalized homelessness, let us say in St. Elizabeth, then people will be forced perhaps to leave their land. What would you say?
That's not going to happen. And Trump's saying that he criminalized homelessness is an absolute lie, simply because if he was serious about criminalizing homelessness, why is the housing market collapsing? Why is the housing market in America actually collapsing?
It's deliberate.
Why are people being forced out of their homes because of ridiculous tariff nonsense? If Donald Trump was serious about the criminalization of homelessness, number one, he would be targeting the large insurance companies as well as the unscrupulous practices of the homeowner associations across the United States of America. And he would be creating subsidy as well as trust funding for those associations to be able to make sure that jobs as well as home insurance came to the point where it could be affordable, and that people in home associations across the United States of America could come together and have the security of a federally backed trust that could contribute to the operations, as well as bringing communities together and expanding the ability of homeowners to live properly. So this whole notion of criminalizing homelessness is utter nonsense.
Yeah, but that is not his agenda, Mr. Corbin. You and I know that. His agenda is that, as you know, that the agenda of the WEF is that you own nothing and you'll be happy. So the fact of the matter is that the housing market is controlled, and they want it to collapse so that people, the Black Rocks and all these major companies can go and buy up all these properties, right? And people own nothing, and they'll be happy. So the same thing would probably happen in Jamaica. The WEF agenda is the same for all countries, is that they create this collapse, they create this sort of environment where they militarize everything, force you out of your land, and then you have nothing.
Well, that's not going to work in Jamaica. Because
you think Jamaica is a special case?
I will tell you one thing for certain, okay? I will tell you one thing for certain. The global community has significantly underestimated the resolve of the spiritual power of the Jamaican people. And I am guaranteeing you that the Jamaican people, with their inherent militant attitude towards self-identity and the identity and the preservation of their national identity, will never allow that to happen. Jamaica will not allow it, okay? And I am guaranteeing you, as God is my witness here today, every single one of their plans with regard to that is going to fall flat, because the people of Jamaica are not going to allow that to happen. You deliberately create the circumstances to destroy the livelihoods of 2/3 of the most prosperous districts of your country, and you expect me to comply with your ideology after you've done that to me? Nope, not happening.
But Fred, the point is that they're not thinking like you and me. They're thinking that what they're hearing from the media first is true. So if they're listening to the media and they're listening to those narratives, then they believe what they hear. And they don't see behind the scenes that the agenda is to capture your land. So that's how they're going to be defeated. The informational warfare.
No,
That's not
so. That's not so. Because we have evidence on the ground already that that's not been the case. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
That is what we perceive to be happening with the media. But there is absolutely no evidence coming out of Jamaica at this point in time that Jamaicans are believing what the media has said.
What the media is saying to them.
Okay, there is no evidence at all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, this person was saying, I just done a little research, search on Dr. James, is it Giordanic? Giordano, as Fred suggested. He has a video called, let me see, I'm not seeing it well here. Remote access to the brain is real. I'll give it a watch later. Yeah, so we are seeing elements, Fred, where our society is one in which, as you're saying, that our minds are controlled. And that is, we used to have the power. I think that even though we pretend, because we have all of these gadgets and we have all of these access to media, YouTube channels, all these channels that we have access to, we think we're properly informed. But I think that we are probably one of the least informed generations the world has ever seen, even though we have, ironically, access to all of this information. What would you say? I think because it's so controlled information that we think we're informed when we're not. Go ahead, Mr. Corbett.
Absolutely, and what you're saying is absolutely correct, because we believe that we have been so socially conditioned to believe that whatever the media says is gospel, because again, we come from a colonial, imperial, oppressed history that has deliberately set out to embark upon the destruction of the identity of its colonial subjects, and to establish absolute obeisance and obedience via whatever means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that the media holds so much power in the Western world today is because of that ideology that was put in place by the British colonial system. And it worked extremely well against people who were hungry, they were oppressed, they were beaten, if you didn't drop your native language and speak English, you were beaten and sometimes killed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, or your children were beheaded in front of you, or your wife raped in front of you. The average person who is just seeking to get along, trying to make a living, okay, watching your wife being raped by a gang of filthy individuals and your children killed in front of you, do you think you won't comply? Tell me one single man on this earth that will not comply when he sees his children killed and his wife raped in front of him. Okay? And you also have to understand one thing. You have to understand one very important thing. Rape is a weapon of war.
Mm-hmm.
Has been since biblical times.
Even slavery.
Okay?
Even slavery. Mm-hmm.
Now, the most important thing, slavery has never ended. Slavery is still continuing today. And there are more slaves sold into captivity and sold into
chattel slave
than ever before. But the most important thing that we have to understand with regard to what took place here in the Caribbean is that our particular predicament today has 300 years of preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have been prepared as a people to believe that if the white man says something, that it must be true.
That's it. That's
And
it.
at the end of the day, we fail utterly to recognize that this same oppressor who was controlling the situation in the 1600s hasn't gone anywhere.
His
He hasn't
children
gone
are the
anywhere.
ones who are
He's
allowed.
still here. They are
Mm-hmm.
still here doing exactly the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
just through different means. We're
Absolutely.
still facing the same problem. And this is why
Mm-hmm.
I would say to the people of Jamaica, and I say to every single sovereign national of the Eastern Caribbean, you are responsible for making the decisions with regard to where we, as sovereign nationals of every single one of our territories, proceed with regard to creating a prosperous spiritual environment for our children and for a prosperous environment for the prosperity of the Caribbean region as a whole.
Sealy 15 is saying, I hope they have documentation of their land title, even it is just a picture. What do you say? Do you think that that will save them if they have titles to their land
Well, one of the
from
things,
captured?
one of yes, one of the things that one of the things that works very well as for situations such as this is an app that you can download called Google Earth.
Mm-hmm.
If you can go onto Google Earth and you can take a snapshot of the Google Earth and you can take a recording of and you can look at your house from above and see
Mm-hmm.
exactly where your house is and so on that actual app, it shows you the GPS coordinates of that property.
Mm.
That is an electronic record of where
Mm-hmm.
your property once stood.
Mm-hmm.
That GPS coordinate can then be taken into the National Archives and look for a plot of land and say, right, that's it. That's where it is. That's where it's located. And then physical actual measurement with regard to on the ground. And Google Earth has all of those features to it.
One of the things I'm seeing people having now is that they can be anywhere. Let us say you're in Barbados and you have a property in Jamaica, or even if you're in Barbados or you have a different property somewhere else in another region in Barbados, you can have like camera. You can have on your phone a camera, right, where you can see what's going on your property, even though you're a distance away. If we can do these things and manipulate these devices, right, from the convenience of your home or anywhere you are, don't you think that they can also manipulate these devices in terms of shattering your title and what do you think in terms of this technological manipulation, and we are able to watch our property from a far distance? I think that's also surveillance. We're surveilling ourselves.
Well, at the end of the day, people do this for security.
I know, but
And
security, they always have surveillance in the name of security, right?
I understand that. Most important thing is surveillance is security, and security is surveillance. If you have a telephone, any smartphone, and you have your
Mm-hmm.
property connected remotely and so on, and you decide to log on to an app website in order to be able to view your property, that can be interdicted by criminals and say, right, okay, so he's actually out of the country, his house is surveilled, he can turn
Mm-hmm.
his cameras on and so on and so forth, but there's nobody there anyway, so who cares? Well, then we can break in
Right.
and steal anything.
Right.
Yes, that can be done. Okay, there's no question about it. That's how the Israeli military operates. The Israeli
Mm-hmm.
military were able to target the homes of Iranian generals
Mm-hmm.
using security camera footage and timing in order to be able to time the airstrikes directly when they were at home sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they did
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
yes, it can be done.
Okay. Can you Don Dada is asking, can you have a storm that has no thunder or lightning?
Yes, geoengineered storms do not usually carry thunder and lightning simply because in order for thunder and lightning to take place, you have to have convectional activity of an intensity that is naturally propagated. And the baroclinic initiation on a geoengineered storm is on a far smaller scale, concentrated around the eye wall in a
Mm-hmm.
naturally occurring um, on a naturally occurring Atlantic storm, or what we call Cape Verde hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they're called Cape Verde hurricanes is because they form off the Cape Verde Islands in the Eastern Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
In a naturally occurring Cape Verde hurricane, you have what's known as rain bands that are
Mm.
probably 100 or 200 miles in length coming in to the center. And those are where the thunderstorms and the lightning propagates before it actually comes into the confluence of the eye wall. You, in a geoengineered storm, because you are concentrating your convectional activity in a very small area to create an intense storm that's probably only about 15 miles wide, you don't have the thunder and the lightning because you cannot expand the convectional activity into the outer bands of the storm. So you don't have the migration of the thunderstorms coming into the middle.
I want the public to know that Mr. Corbin is an engineer. All right, so he's not just talking off the bat. He's a well-read person and a scientist.
I also want to just make everyone aware, and I don't have access to it right now. But I did a PowerPoint presentation at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in 2007 on hurricanes, which was authored and by myself.
Wow!
And I will send you a copy of that we can actually revisit.
It's interesting you say that, because last night I was impressed to say, Mr. Corbin, I am not going to say anything. I'm going to have you just give a lecture on probably the first 30 to 45 minutes. And I was going to say, if you have any PowerPoint presentation, use it. I would like you to come back to do that because this is important.
Yes, I can. Once you have to understand what happened. I had that PowerPoint presentation on my desktop, but recently my computer was interdicted and I lost everything that was on the computer. Fortunately, I had the most important things backed up on an external hard drive. I just need to access. I need to access a certain secure channel in order to get a copy of that PowerPoint, and then we can have another session where I can go through slide by slide and explain what each slide means for the public. I've sent it to a few people. I did send it to a few people in 2024 when Hurricane Beryl went through the Grenadines, and that was an exact same storm. No lightning, no thunder, just rip-roaring wind and rain. Okay.
So that means it's not natural. That's what you're suggesting.
Not natural.
It's geoengineering.
That's correct. A naturally formed, naturally propagated Cape Verde hurricane of Category 5 strength will have no less than the equivalent of probably 200,000 thunderstorms active simultaneously within its construct. A naturally occurring Cape Verde hurricane releases more heat energy per hour than all of the world's nuclear arsenals combined.
Yeah. And the next time we're on the program, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't have 100, I'm going to promote it on my community. And if we don't have 100 persons saying that they're going to show up for the live, we won't waste our time, because this is actually something to help you, right, to cope with what is happening. And many of you are not taking this very seriously, but this is a serious disaster that's facing Jamaica. Now, Coco Brown 555 is saying there is so much misinformation out there. I guess we can agree with that, Mr.
Yes, it's called the media.
Yes. And how do we distinguish? Somebody's asking me, when are you live next? Now we will promote it. Are you subscribed? If you're a subscriber, then I think you'll see, don't you? Get post notification, Coco Brown. I did have the live promoted from last week, if I'm not probably last Monday or Tuesday. So you should be able to get it. Yeah. So you will see when the live is next. You will see it based on your post notification. And I will send out also a community notice. I understand that the YouTube algorithm is also blocking notifications. So if you don't see the notifications, go onto my channel to see if I'm having a live, because the algorithm is sensitive and they don't want information like these to be sent abroad. Now, Mr. Corbin, I think we have 12 minutes left, because we have and by the way, we have another live at 4:00 this afternoon on Room Nation News Network, where we'll be talking about the invasion of Venezuela. I think I'll do a little thing too on the. Thank you so much for just subscribing. And please share the live. Make sure you're also liking the live. Share the live with others. That's the only way the YouTube algorithm, they don't want to share it because it's not within their interest. So you have to share it so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. So we have another live with Mr. Corbin and also Mr. Gerald Pereira. And is it Mr. Davidson Ned, Mr. Corbin?
That's right.
Yes, right. Mr. Davidson Ned from Grenada, who will be talking about the Caribbean and the invasion of Grenada and what lessons we can learn now, then that we should have learned then, that we should learn now. We need to connect the dots because we know, for those of you who know, when Grenada was invaded, Prime Minister Edward Seaga was involved, and Tom Adams of Barbados, and Dominica, we have Eugenius Charles. They were traitors, as we probably would say they are. I don't say traitors, we mean that they were too friendly with the United States. That's what I mean. I don't mean that they wanted to see anybody killed. Okay, so let's be clear on that. Yeah, so the next live, let me know when you want us to do the next live. Well, Mr. Corbin is only available on Sundays, so we cannot do it during the week. So what time do you think is best for you for lives? Put it in the box. If you probably 12 o'clock is too early for you. The reason why I put it at 12 today is because we had another live today with Mr. Corbin and Mr. Ned and also Mr. Pereira. So I had to push it back to 12 o'clock. But let me know what time would be great. Let me see now. Great answer, Mr. Corbin. Yeah, Mr. Corbin is brilliant, and I don't know why I'm not seeing many poor persons on the line, on the live. Great answer, Mr. Corbin. I'm interested in thunderstorms. I read about this for Mellissa. Now, where are you writing from, Don Dada? Mr. Corbin, how do we get to have people to call in? I don't know. I don't have this sort of technical skills to have people call in. People, Caribbean people like to talk. They don't like to necessarily, they like to connect directly. How do you think I could set up a call-in program so that I can call in?
You don't need a call-in program. You just need to ditch StreamYard and use Zoom.
What would I need?
You need to ditch StreamYard and use Zoom.
Zoom.
StreamYard has no ability for people to actually enter in and carry on a conversation unless you go to some big long sponsorship program. Okay. At the end of the day, you can use a Zoom platform and you can have as much as 3,000 people on there, and people can just put their hands up and contribute and talk.
Right, okay? You're correct. And they can call in, right?
Yeah.
They can call
yes. As long as they're on a computer or a phone, they can talk to you. Okay?
Right.
I'm not saying that they can't do it with StreamYard, but StreamYard is very, very limited, and it's very subject to technical interdiction. If you have a rainstorm suddenly start while you're doing a StreamYard live, all of a sudden it's a possibility.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. You're right.
Zoom is much more secure, or GoToMeeting. GoToMeeting and Zoom are probably the two best in the world right now.
And the GoToMeet that you were telling me.
Yeah, GoToMeet. Yeah, that's GoToMeeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we do have access to a GoToMeeting platform if we choose to use it.
Yes. I'm just terrible with using the platforms unless you're going to be because even this is a challenge. I invited Andrew on the hurricane thing, the last live, and I didn't even remember that I have to send him. Well, it was good that I had that problem with him, because then I would have the same problem with you guys, because I had not used StreamYard for for a month now. We haven't had a live, so I didn't know what I was doing. So I don't want to come on the live feeling like I don't know what's going on.
No, StreamYard is very limited, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not that it's a bad platform. It's just not designed to do what we want it to do.
Yes.
Okay.
So what we want, ladies and gentlemen, is for you to share the live with your friends. And the next time Mr. Corbin will be back, we will try to, get that with him, to work out that sort of arrangements with him. And he's going to present the PowerPoint presentation on hurricanes. This is a very important presentation. And Mr. Corbin is no ordinary person. Okay, he's humble, but he has a lot of credentials. Okay, he can speak about politics, he can speak about religion, he can speak about science, language, anything you ask him to speak about, and he speaks about it with confidence, with eloquence, and with a great amount of knowledge. I can vouch for that, and I'm not just saying it because I'm just using words here. It is true. All right. So, is there anything, 7 more minutes, Mr. Corbin, that you'd like to say regarding the storm and what you see lies ahead for Jamaica and the Caribbean at large?
Well, I think, as I've said before on several of your programs, we have to understand that the United States of America is focusing on 3 countries in the Caribbean right now, and that is Guyana, Trinidad, and Jamaica. And the reinforcement of the Monroe Doctrine with regard to what they put in place, as you see it pertaining to the 1941, 1961 treaties and so on, they're using the ghost of the Monroe Doctrine to ensure what they call protectionism of the
Mm-hmm.
American homeland. You have to remember that the
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean region is looking at the soft underbelly of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
And we wouldn't, the United States of America is not going to allow China to come into Mexico or Central America or anything like that and set up shop, even
Right.
although they already have done so economically. But the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing that we have to recognize with regard to the Caribbean is that the United States of America recognizes that the Caribbean region, just as in World War II, had to be secured in order to protect the Panama Canal, as well as the oil interest, the oil and gas interest that powers American industry.
Mm-hmm.
However, as I've said before, there's a larger agenda with regard to Venezuela, and I will explain that larger agenda about Venezuela in our live when we speak at 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to
Yes.
invite everyone who joined this live at 12 o'clock, please join us again at 4 o'clock so that you
On
will
Room
hear
Nation.
precisely
Mm-hmm.
what the larger agenda on Venezuela is, because it's not what you think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
as an interesting aside, have you looked at the headlines of the international media companies this morning?
No, but I saw a beautiful article written by the Trinidad and Guardian newspaper, the editorial, and I think we should share that on our live today because it was beautifully written.
No,
When I
hang
read
on.
but I didn't
No,
see the
no, no.
headline. But go ahead, Mr. Carter.
No, that's the Trinidad Guardian. I'm talking about the international media headlines. You
No,
can't find a single in the international media headlines, BBC, all across, all on MSNBC and everything, CNN, the whole 9 yards. What happened to the Venezuela headlines?
yeah,
Click. It's almost as if somebody's flipped the switch and no, all of a sudden it's off the table. There are no Venezuela headlines at all.
I
Everything's
get your
gone
point
dark. You know, everything's gone dark. Why?
because a sudden attack. You think they're going to be a sudden, yeah, a sudden
No,
attack.
no,
Yeah,
no, no, no. Not gonna happen.
it's not going to
You
happen.
wanna you wanna know why?
Mm-hmm.
The meeting between President Xi Jinping and Donald Trump on Thursday in Seoul, South Korea.
Mm.
Xi Jinping in the sidelines of that conference and that meeting told Trump directly, "You get involved in China, and we will end every economic subsidy and program of the United States of America."
You know, one of the things though with Trump and not only Trump is the unpredictability of the United States. So when we hear these things, you can accept them for what they are. But the United States is like a snake that can hit you from many different directions. And yes, I take it with a grain of salt, but I don't. I would if I were
But this
Venezuela.
came from China. This came from China, not
I
the
know.
U.S.
I know, I
Right.
know. No, I believe what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I trust what you're saying, and I'm sure you've read it from a very credible source. What I'm saying is that the U.S. speaks a lot of times, and then tomorrow it just changes its mind and it does the complete opposite of what it says it was going to do or not going to do.
Well, that brings us back to the point of Dr. James Georgiano's the program at West
Hmm.
Point when he did that famous video at West Point where he says that the brain is the battlefield of the future. All right.
Hmm.
What we see happening is we see the President of the United States of America controlled by an entity outside of the government of which he has very little knowledge. And he will make sweeping statements one day and completely change his mind the other because that's
Yes.
what he is being programmed to do.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
programmed puppet at the head of the second most powerful country in the world, and it is being controlled by a group that is way behind the scenes in the shadows that no one knows anything about.
But isn't that also to make the enemy, well, the supposed enemy, not be aware of what you really are doing, and they become unaware, let down their guard, and then you attack? Isn't
Well,
that a strategy?
well, that brings us to the point, and a very potent point indeed, from the intelligence community. Many years ago, a commanding general who I actually had a conversation with on one of the deployments, and he said to me, he said, "Fred, if you want to find out what's going on in Washington, call London."
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, yeah. And I understand, to based on my reading of the U.S. military empire, and I've read a lot about the empire, okay, from a religious perspective and also political and historical perspective. I understand that sometimes the presidents themselves don't know what is happening. And
No,
sometimes when they go on live TV shows, they're told what they have to say and they just have to fall in line. And if they don't fall in line, it can be problematic. So
well,
that's
this
why
is
you heard Obama sometimes saying and he's talking and he's because he's trying to get his words together, because what he was briefed on in his office and what is being done on the ground are two different things. Go ahead, Mr. Corbett.
well, we saw this historically manifest when President Biden was the president, where
Yes.
he had a teleprompter in front of him, and he would say something, and then the teleprompter would put in the words, return to first sentence, and he would say return to first sentence, and people were going like, what? It didn't make any
Well,
sense.
Well, that was done because of his what do you call it now? His Alzheimer's, his memory loss, right? Because he was just sometimes not focusing.
He never had Alzheimer's. He never will have Alzheimer's. He was being mind controlled. He
I
was
see what you're
being
saying.
mind controlled, and the same thing is
Yes.
happening to Donald Trump. And the thing is that the medical community is hiding behind the fact that Donald Trump is almost 80 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they're saying, oh, it's just age and it's Alzheimer's, or it's something to do with his age and degrading and so on and so forth. Hang on a second. The guy has been injected with COVID-19 shots and boosters. He has nanoscale synthetic self-assembling transmission technology within his body. Do you think he's incapable of being mind controlled?
You mean Trump?
Yes, he's completely mind controlled.
I don't think Trump took it. I think that Trump took other
He
things.
just went through a medical examination, and it has been proven, and the doctor that actually gave it to him wrote on his Substack that this is what happened.
I see what you're saying. saying.
Okay.
Trinidad is a lost case. Their people are not making any noise because of the state of emergency. U.S. Us shouldn't have a base there, right? The U.S. shouldn't have a base there. And why is CARICOM not talking about Trinidad allowing USA to kill the boats, the speedboats?
Come back to us at 4 o'clock. Come back to us at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, very good. Yes, but those of us who are here trying to ask your questions about, thank you very much, Mr. Corbin, for reminding us and keeping us focused. And if you don't have any other questions on the hurricane, I think we are going to end here. But if you have, we'll wait for you for 5 more minutes to see if you have any questions on the hurricane. That's Hurricane Mellissa, or any other hurricane that you might have experienced. But we're talking now about Hurricane Mellissa. Because now we're seeing, Mr. Corbin, the militarization of the Caribbean. Whether we want to accept it, yes or no, I think the Hurricane Mellissa for Jamaica, for Trinidad, it is the war on Venezuela. And for Jamaica, I think the militarization is going to be this Hurricane Mellissa. Go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And there's going to be a lot of follow-up on this. But the core principle here is that the people of Jamaica have an opportunity now that they have been physically hurt, harmed, killed, displaced, and disenfranchised to now take a stand against the government. This is actually now going to work in the opposite way that people have believed. Jamaicans are not backing down this time. Sorry, not happening. Yes,
there's something else I want to make sure. The point I want to emphasize to Mr. Corbin. One of the things about Jamaica, and I'm sure that Guyana probably is a similar case, is the fact that the best minds, probably the more or the most revolutionary ones, have left. Because they have been, what the system does, it allows you to get frustrated, like the Marcus Garveys. And they've done their best, and then they look here, I can't be bothered with it, I have to go. So you have what you have in Jamaica right now, and I'm not saying that there are not some revolutionary minds there and prepared to work. I think the best of Jamaicans have left. And a point I want to make here is I read an article from a Puerto Rican who spoke about the Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, and she said that because of the delay in getting assistance to the people in Puerto Rico, that they left and went to the United States. How many of them? 40, I think she said 40,000 of them left that area and went to the United States, and only 40,000 returned. I think millions of people left, or thousands of people left, and only 40,000 returned. I think when people are frustrated, they're going to leave. this is just my, and then we are so much accustomed now, Mr. Corbin, to our gadgets and having our phones and having all, the conveniences of life. So if I can move to a country or a parish that has those sort of conveniences, why stay here in this confusion? Talk to me, Mr. Corbin.
I agree with you that frustration is a large part of it, but you have to recognize that when a natural disaster is engineered like this, it is to create statutory demoralization. Listen to that very carefully. 2 words: statutory demoralization.
Mm-hmm.
If you create a permanent state of demoralization, you have ultimate control over the spiritual power of the people to help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is an established fact when you
Mm-hmm.
use a national disaster to control a population.
Mm-hmm.
However, it is very quickly dismantled when the
Mm-hmm.
spiritual power of the people come together to rally around themselves. And this is where Jamaica stands right now at the threshold. This is the crossroad. They stand on the threshold of being able to rally spiritually to help themselves. And that's what has to happen. Otherwise than that, statutory demoralization can take hold like a disease, and then it's very difficult to eradicate.
Yes, and the blamings are the blaming on the it's climate change or it's climate change. So when they poke that blame on the people feel guilty, just like the pandemic. When they were telling us,
Demoralization.
right, very good
Demoralization.
word, correct. So when they say these things, you're going to kill your, or the diseases that are here, you're going to spread among the populace, then you have to go, you have to relocate. I am sure these are things that they're going to use. We've seen the playbook before during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and I don't think that there's going to be a different playbook right now. But as you said, we hope, because Jamaicans did not submit to, a large portion of the population did not submit to the health, whatever they had there. I will not call it because the algorithm is very sensitive and will block the videos. But the fact of the matter is that they did not submit. The population, for the most part, did not submit. So let us hope that during this hurricane, as Mr. Corbin is saying, and he has a lot of confidence in the Jamaican people, that they will stand up and say, we're not leaving our land, and no matter what you tell us, we are going to stick to where this is our land. Our parents have died and they've left here, or ancestors, whomever. We hope that they will stand up to the powers that be. Yes, thank you so much for joining, and we hope that you will join us for future lives. And remember, we're going to try now to organize another live for hurricanes, talking about hurricanes and how hurricanes operate. Any other question? Anybody, any other question? So we can end it. Thank you so much for joining. Go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for coming and joining. Those who participated, we look forward to seeing you again at 4:00. And I've got to go now because I've got a large plate of ackee and saltfish that I need to get at.
Oh, Lord, send some through the cameras for me, please.
See you later.
See you later. All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, take it easy, everyone, and we'll see you at 4:00 on Rumination News Network with our live. Okay, see you then. All the best to you. Bye-bye.